Right, so here we are once again in the porterhouse, and today we're gonna be talking about German beer. What else are we gonna be talking about? Oh yeah, German purity laws. Is that what they're called?
Reingebot. German purity laws.
Excellent.
Purity laws.
So what do we have here, Brian? What is this? I believe we changed the country. We've gone to Germany. Haven't we?
Germans make beers.
They do. I think one or two people might know about that.
It's not a secret. Schneider Aventinus. It's a Bayern double bock. Very good. It's very good. It's they have this funny thing now where they started calling their beers tap 6, 3, 2, 1, 0 being their non-alcoholic beer and whatnot.
So this isn't very strong then, is it?
Strong enough. This is 7.9, 8.2 in fact. 8.2. This is your Aventinus. This is their double bock. There's also an ice bock. We won't get into that. We should actually. That's gorgeous.
We do it some other time.
Well, it's essentially just the ice block is this that's been stored in oak barrels, and you freeze it, and then when the ice forms, you take that off. Makes it stronger, essentially.
Oh, okay.
That's about 11%. It's essentially a reduced version of this. The colour again, pretty typical of a bock. Bready head on that. This, as you may recall from our last effort, this is a lager.
I was just about to ask you. So this is a lager.
This is a lager.
Which I think the natural assumption would be straight away that for a lot of people that just by the simplicity of colour, you would assume that ales are dark and lagers are lighter. Which this proves that that's not always the case.
True. You can get very dark lagers, and you can get very light ales. This is technically a lager, but then to narrow down the classification, double bock.
It just smells good.
You may recognise some of the smells from the Rochefort 10 we did last week.
I was just about to say that it doesn't smell too far away from something that once they've tried. Like, there's similarities there.
Yeah, that comes from the yeast. So the thing with German beers is, again, you'd imagine that it's been spiced with cloves and bananas and raisins and all of those flavours, very similar, but not at all.
Yeah, exactly.
There are no spices added to it.
It's the art.
It's the art of brewing. The yeast brings out that banana and clove flavour. You'll get that in some of the English beers traditionally. If that aroma comes out, it's a flaw in their beer, and they just scrap the whole batch.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Germans, it's almost a signature flavour profile due to the yeast. Marvellous stuff, yeast is.
Yeah.
Considerably lighter.
It is.
On the palate than the again, because it's a lager, it won't have the finish, but
I think what you were saying, the very first one, the carbonation is a different process. This one isn't really big. It feels like there's a bit more. There's more bite in there. The bubbles.
again, because it's a lager, it's gonna it's the lager yeast reacts to cold, and because this beer is colder, and it would have maybe not so much in this. Actually, maybe you would, but there would be secondary fermentation because the yeast would still be live. You can edit this bit out later on, but I always remember that being up to a stronger flavour, a thicker beer.
But do you know what? That's actually a good point, and I think that comes with being in this house so much. You get exposed to so much different beers, so you memories of the early beers, which were like, wow, this is what beer's supposed to taste like.
Yeah.
And then you go back to them years later when you've been exposed to these like completely nuts beers, like, you know.
Well, you look at our oyster stout when I started working in here.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't get enough.
It was
I couldn't get enough of the stuff. I suppose, personally, I've moved on to. I know now where my palate lies in beer flavour profiles and whatnot. I know what I want from a beer.
Yeah.
But when you're only used to drinking bloody Carlsberg, you know, it's an explosion in the mouth every time.
This there's an interesting twist here, because it does, when you first think it feels like it's sweeter than it actually ends up being. You know what I mean? Like when it goes in your mouth, you get this sense of that it's going to be sweet, and then that disappears, and it's actually quite surprisingly dry.
It is. I would imagine that would be the alcohol. The alcohol evaporating right off, making it a bit drier.
Yeah.
There wouldn't really be a lot of hops in this either. Hallertau hop being the very traditional Bavarian hop would be, as far as I know, it's the only hop in this.
Yeah.
It's put in twice. But
What does that entail then? Putting it twice?
you put a lot of it in the beginning,
Yeah.
at the start of your boil. And that's mainly because of its antibacterial properties. You throw that in, and a hint of bittering, and then you throw it in the end just for the sake of having a touch of flavour in it. There's very little hop flavour of that beer, understandably, because it's not that kind of beer. The German purity laws, which are a thing, 15, 16, I think they first started to bring them in. They actually didn't become law until 1906. And the point was that all the Bavarian brewers were looking at brewers from northern Germany and like, what is this they're putting in their beer? I can't trust this.
Yeah, exactly.
The Northern Europe used, before hops were a thing, they used to use what they called a grut. Just different herbs and spices. There's a Finnish beer I came across, an unhopped beer that had caraway seed and nutmeg and some local herbs in it.
What is it working to use? Juniper berries.
Juniper berries was also in it, yes.
They're very common.
And they have an antibacterial element to them as well.
Yeah, I don't know what I think about that now. In all fairness, like hops are kind of maybe I'm brainwashed too much, but to me, like hops are part of beer.
Well, the original purity laws only allowed them to use hops, barley, and water. They didn't know a thing about yeast. Of course, yeast is now, we understand what yeast is. A lot of the German brewers are looking to get these laws. They're not the same now. Obviously, other things are allowed into beers, and then obviously with the EU and the Treaty of Rome, free trade, yada yada yada. It's viewed as kind of a protectionist upon German beer having these rules, so they've been relaxed again.
Brussels.
God damn bleeding Brussels. You know, they ruin any Christmas dinner, if you ask me.
Stay away from beer and cheese.
Yeah, and straight bananas, man. I want my bananas bent.
Yeah.
Oh, I totally want a curvy banana. You have to the noise that's going on in here as well.
Yeah. There's actually renovations happening in the courthouse, which is going to be pretty cool. We're going to show you around once the renovations are finished.
Not yet.
The extension of the pub.
Oh, there's many men with pencils behind their ears working, beavering away upstairs.
I'm proud to say I've got a fair bit of experience with German like lighter style beers, but not at the darker ones. There was one which is actually something we have to look into as well. We're building up a ridiculous amount of trips in our heads where we want to go and try beers. So as we said before, anybody want to sponsor this would be well on for it. Bamberg. They do this smoky beer. I know, but it was really good. I know, but I was in the brewery one time, and it was really good. But you only have one pint.
Don't like it, smoked beer at all.
You have to try it there. So it is a different experience. You know?
Yeah, but no. There are certain things I'll allow, and smoked beer I just can't tolerate. We'd have them in for the German Beer Festival and Rauch beer, and some of them, it's just licking your face with a bag of bacon fries.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it does very much. It actually very much has that. When I say smoked, it almost is like a barbecue flavour.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a smoke as such. On another note, something I wanted to ask here actually is that I've been working this out in my head, and when we're filming this, it's February, and March is coming on, and we are going to try to work a little bit of a theme whenever it's seasonal.
We're not making this up as we go along.
Yeah, exactly. And in March, I think we're going to be concentrating mainly on Irish beers and mainly on Irish stouts, possibly some ales as well. But I mean, due to the fact that Paddy's Day and all that, I think it's only really concentrating on some of the quality beers that don't get enough light in this country.
Well, stouts. It's a wonderful style of beer.
Exactly.
It's a very Irish thing.
That's in March. We're still in Germany.
They do make a lot of good beer, Germans.
I probably did this completely wrong, haven't I?
Not at all. It's only beer. Just smash it. Splash it in.
Splash it.
Just pour it in.
Here's another thing that what I've learned from my travels around that area is that there is a certain, and very much so, understandably, there's a certain kind of reputation of Bavaria, and then the western part of the Czech Republic, the kind of Bavaria area. So for a very long time, it's been held kind of very high up in the kind of like the home of beer, you know, where it not as much originated, but where it was perfected. In fact, that's only very limited type of beer that was perfected there.
Well, it was essentially the yeast that they discovered.
Yeah.
Saccharomyces, something or other, which was again discovered shortly afterwards by the Carlsberg brewers.
Yeah.
And they called it Saccharomyces carlsbergensis, but it was only rediscovered. So that's essentially your lager yeast, which discovered down around there. And in Pilsen, obviously, where mainly lagers come from. They're cold fermented beers.
Yeah, but that's interesting. When I was in the Pilsen, I was in the factory or the brewery tour, and actually they got brewmasters from Bavaria to teach them how to do it originally.
Teach them how to make the beers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, as I said, that's why I as much as I love Czech beer, I'm not giving them the credit for inventing it. I'm giving them the credit for perfecting it, rather than because by God it's good. But
some of them are gorgeous. Well, many of them are aged in barrels just to bring a flavour in.
Oh man,
which is a lot of work
like
for simple lagers.
Have you been to Czech Republic?
No, I've not.
That's gonna happen in this summer. It's oh man, like just
If you look at most of the brewing centres of Europe, would be the centre of the continent really, where you've got Pilsen, so you go up into through Hallertau, Moldavia. It's just beer.
No, but that's actually made me think of another thing, and I'm sure when we see this is the kind of stuff that it comes up to our minds, and which leads us to research, which leads us to sharing with you guys. Some of this stuff you probably guys know already. That's fine. I honestly pride on my ignorance in this matter, in the sense that makes it more of a discovery journey, which we're trying to do. I think a lot of those areas, big deal would be the water source.
Entirely.
So, would it be the rivers? Do you know what I mean? Or would it be?
It's just the waters, whatever the water is coming through.
Yeah. So that'd be might be interesting. Like another aspect of it, beer journey is like follow the rivers and.
Well, you could do a beer journey following the water.
Yeah. Exactly.
You could take, for example, if you look at the English brewers, the brewers in the south of England, all that water has a lot of calcium in it.
Yeah. True.
When American brewers started brewing, they would be brewing essentially English beers, and what they would have to do is what they call Burtonise the water. They would have to take water and add calciums to it, just to get the flavour they want, until they realise, well, they don't have to do that.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
You know? again, because it's the major part, it's the major ingredient in beer, so it's going to affect its flavour. You can make the same beer in a half a dozen different places, the exact same recipes, and it's going to taste completely different.
Which is, as much as we're going to bring the big one here in the question, because there's so many myths about it. Guinness is a good example, I think, because a lot of I talked to some bar owners. A lot of places in Europe are getting the Guinness from different sources. Like the number one go-to source that Guinness would love to send you stuff is in Europe is from the UK.
Is that right?
Yeah, but the bars can go, like for example, in Tel Aviv, they're getting the Guinness from Dublin.
Wow. Also, to travel that far, it being such a...
But that's another thing. The travel. I'm still too much about how much the travel has effect on it, and how much that is a myth, or do you know what I mean?
No, it's not a myth. If it's maintained correctly, if it's refrigerated from source, from the plant to the tap, if you will, it should last for 3 or 4 weeks.
There's only one way to find this out. We're gonna have to go to New York. Porterhouse in New York, and we have to follow the keg.
2 now.
We have to follow the keg.
We could follow a keg of plain, and we could also follow a keg of Guinness to 2 bars on the same street. We could choose, for example, let's say Pearl Street in Manhattan, where there's 3 bars we could go with, 2 owned by the Porterhouse and 1 owned by whoever. And we could follow the same 2 kegs, 1 keg of plain porter and 1 keg of Guinness. How it's transported, how long it takes to get there.
That'd be awesome. That'd be just an awesome trip. Did they ship them or fly them?
Who shipped them?
How's your sea legs?
Fine.
Good.
Yeah. As long as there's enough alcohol, I'll pretty much tolerate anything.
I've got a really good sea leg, so I'm going to maximum to it. Anyway, this beer, I can actually feel the alcohol in a different way than we did in the Belgian house. Would that be anything to do with the carbonation of the gas?
No, I'd imagine. Well, again, a byproduct of its style, because it's a lager. It won't have the depth. It won't have the consistency. It won't have. It's a lighter thing. There's less in there. It'll give flavours to mask the alcohol, so the alcohol is quite apparent.
No, but I'm not even talking about taste. I'm actually talking about my head. I can feel it.
Oh well, then that's probably because your breakfast wasn't good enough. You should have eaten more bread with your breakfast, or eggs.
Don't worry about it. I had a lot of eggs every morning. We were talking about the German beer laws, the brewing laws, which we do think that they're still in.
Yes. They're not the same law as they used to be.
And it's very restricted to certain areas of Germany, isn't it? Like it's more or is it the whole Germany?
It was originally Bavaria for people importing beer from other parts of Germany into Bavaria. When the wall fell, when David Hasselhoff took down the Berlin Wall through the power of his music, a German brewers cluster, an East German brewer, they used to make a dark beer, and then when they united the 2 countries, because of the purity laws, that beer wasn't allowed. So look, hang on, we can't get that. Leave us alone. Let us make our beer. So they had to amend. They had to get them originally to change the name of their beer. They couldn't call it beer, but it's ridiculous. It's clearly a beer. So the actual the purity laws themselves aren't as. They're not the same laws as they were.
Yeah.
They've been diluted so much and changed, and because obviously there are people in Germany who want to make beer to taste like an American craft beer.
Yeah.
But they can't. I'm sure you look when Germans come over here, they're so used to drinking their beer, and they come in here and they get themselves a good pint of stout. It's just what's this? Was ist das?
Yeah.
It's a whole new thing, and again, it's a new thing, and we all like new things, and it's a good thing to have.
That's brilliant. Right, guys. I want to ask you something. I want to ask you, first of all, you guys have been absolutely brilliant on the social media, getting back to us and giving us feedback. Leave us feedback. What you think of this stuff? What of those trips do you think we should go for? And what beers do you think we should try? We'll take them under serious consideration. Make no promises.
No, never make promises.
But
never make promises.
But it is very easy to get us to try. beers.
So what have we got? Middle of we can go to Middle Europe,
Yeah.
New York,
Yeah.
Belgium.
Yeah. So yes, there are a lot of beer trips coming along. But yeah, let us know what you think. And once again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hey, keep us.
People outside now think we're waiting.
It'll come to me.
Għandha selecta kilobyte ċekka. Bella Brian, bella GP, la gente che rimane la stessa.
That's gonna be the intro music from now on.